just review what we talked about yesterday, and then actually read the scriptures. But I just wanted to clarify, because I think if we use David, and I'm going to talk about Abigail as an example, then you can see how imperfect this perfect work is, just becoming transparent before the Lord. What happens, when you go to the doctor and you want a diagnosis, and then you give them only part of the symptoms, then he can't give you a clear diagnosis because you haven't been forthcoming. So God can only help you with what you are willing to ask help for. And we all are falling short. Everybody is. And a brilliant the difference between a very okay information and brilliant information from God is the transparency, to the degree that he can flow through you. His truth can flow through you. Okay, look at this. His truth is flowing through you, not you. You're not doing it. You're stepping to the side and just allowing him to speak through you, and by just speak through your heart and through your mind, the clarity. But to the degree that the word hits the mark, to the degree that the word of God hits the mark in your information and your message and your sharing, is to the degree that you're willing to be transparent and not worry about how it sounds, and not worry about what it reveals, and not worry about what part of you is exposed in the process. The more transparent you are, the better your message, the better your information. Because otherwise, God might give you 10 things to say. Or let's do this. He may give you 5 things to say, and because some of it exposes you, you'll only talk about 2 because you don't want to be exposed. So see, it's like trying to run with one foot tied, with one foot off the ground. You're hopping. You're not putting yourself out there. And I'm not saying talking about yourself. I'm saying you actually get out the way so God can talk about himself. He can talk. It's not a stage for you. It is something for him. And so what is that? Why is that such a big deal? Because if you are David, what I really loved about David was that he had no pretense. He just was really, if he had pretense when Saul gave him that armor to wear, he would have tried to wear it to please Saul because of the way it looked. But he didn't have a pretense, and he had a very, and part of it was because his family had kind of treated him like a stepchild, so he didn't have any expectations. Now, I'm not saying he had low self-esteem, because he didn't, but when David was transparent and left to himself, we have one of the most beautiful books in the Bible. We have the book of Psalms. That was written by David. That was written by a clear, clean heart. Doesn't mean he was always like that, because David had a temper. David had rage. He got angry. He was a warrior, but he was a poet. What a contrast! But he was both those things in the same person. And but he did go off on the deep end. He was I said he wasn't a murderer, but he conspired to murder when Bathsheba's husband. By sending him to the front line, he did commit murder, and all of that. He did all of that, and then he repented, and yes, I did it. Yes, we all have had children like that. Some kids will just, without fear, you'll tell them to do something, and they will just tell you they don't want to. But they're being transparent, and you wind up really loving those children because they really are just straight out honest about, it's versus saying, okay, I'll do it, and then they just sneak around and don't do it. They sneak around, and those are the ones you kind of worry about because it's a trust factor. But you can trust somebody that does not, this to be true. You can trust somebody that doesn't necessarily agree with you, but they're truthful about it. Are they truthfully, if they like you or don't like you, but they're being truthful. So sometimes there's an integrity onto themselves. So this is the same thing when we talk about clarity and getting out of the way so you can hear from God. That means, just giving you some examples, the two that went to the church, this is example of being delusional, self-delusional. But the one that the two that went to the church, the Pharisees said, "Oh, I pray, I fast, I did do this and that, and I'm not like that little guy over there. I am this." That's self-delusion. He believed that he was, but he wasn't. And then he just sat there, and then prayers went up to, if they got off the ground, they went up to the ceiling and bounced right back down. It was nothing. But then you had transparency. The one over that just said, "Lord, I'm not worthy to even lift my head to look up," and just wouldn't even lift his head up. But the humility, because he knew in reality, he had a little better grasp in reality on who he was. He didn't falsely represent himself or think he was more than he was. He says, and that's why we always say, start with, "I don't know, I don't know, I don't know." Start with, "Lord, you got the whole, I don't know what to think, to say. Tell me." Go in with a complete blank. Don't go in with, "Okay, I'm going to listen for the Lord, but if he doesn't say what I want to hear, then I got a plan B." That you ain't going to hear, because God doesn't, you're not going to hear nothing. You might hear from the enemy. But if you go in completely, wholly, your whole self in the presence of God, faults and all, and then become transparent. David said, "Create in me a clean heart, oh God, renew in me a right spirit." That's your prayer. Create in me a clean heart. What does that mean? I'm not mad. I'm not angry. I'm not resentful. I'm not jealous. I'm not committing fortification. Even David had done a whole bunch of stuff, but he repented. Okay, yes, I messed up. I need to get it back together. And he said, "Renew in me a right spirit." So that meaning it can go astray. It can go bad in a day, if depending what kind of day you're having. And sometimes the enemy attacks you just the enemy's point of attack. Sometimes the enemy's point of attacking you is to just to befuddle you, to get you out of sorts, to get you off key, just to disorientate you, to just start throwing things at you, and then you can't find you can't find your bearings. And it's those times you have to know when you're under attack. Sometimes you don't know you're under attack till you're like halfway through the day, and you keep kind of feeling off, like, what is going on? People with bad attitudes. I mean, the enemy is coming. He's coming at you, and what you have to be able to do is to center yourself, and that's what this exercise is for. To center yourself. If you sometimes you have to go take a spirit fruit bath in the bathroom at work. You might have to, just because you're getting an attitude or you're getting a certain kind of way, because the enemy is sitting over at the next desk or in the next office and got it out for you. Or you need to go into a meeting and do something, and you need God to be in there speaking on your behalf through you if necessary, and giving you understanding and ideas and discernment. Or you need perception at that point, but you can't get that with your cluttered up with all that stuff. Your spirit has to be clear. This is what I mean. Your spirit has to be clear to hear from God in many different circumstances, and you have to be able to get clear quickly. The get clear quickly portion is after you've done the work we're talking about. That's just a brushing off, not processing something. I'll give you an example. This is an easy thing. You're at Starbucks. You go to the thing, and you happen to get a one of the Starbucks people that has a bad attitude, and this could really be something you think it's not, but your body and your spirit picks up pretty much everything. Your spirit picks up stuff that you are not even processing. You pick up it. Okay, let me see how I can say this. I'll give you an example. If let's just do this. Okay. Let me finish the Starbucks. I'm gonna come back and tell you this. So the Starbucks person gives you your coffee, but they have an attitude. They just go. They can do something like here or something small. That doesn't seem like a big deal. And you were real happy, excited, and then they hit you with that, and you go, wow, what's the attitude about? But then what just happened? You got something, and you have to right now. Don't let that in. Don't start processing it all the way to work. Why did they have? Why did she say that? I'm gonna call the corporate office. I'm gonna da 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 da. You see how you can take it down the street? And now, where you would have been spending that time in the presence of the Lord, getting revelation about something, getting some kind of idea, getting some information, getting a solution. God drops answers and solutions all the time. He works with you throughout your day, helping you figure it out. He's right there. He really is a friend indeed. He is there all the time. And so instead of letting God speak to you, the enemy has pulled you. Now, you're not arguing with the lady or man. You might not never see him again, but they got you because they pulled you. They did something that caused you to actually turn and give that demonic response some attention. That can happen. You have bosses that you just can't get it right. Doesn't matter what you do. They got some little nick or tick to say about it. You have people like that around you. Don't let it get under your skin. Don't, because it'll shift your spirit, and it'll take you from being the happy, fruitful person that you are into you flipping, like you almost double personality. You're almost like you're almost to the point where you go, if it wasn't for the Lord, da 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 da. And it's true. Thank you, God. Thank you. But you need to be able to stay on that all the time. You don't even need to be threatened to flip over to the other side. Don't let the enemy have that much access to your spirit. Don't let the enemy squash your joy. You can bathe all day in the fruit. Spend your morning time praying, and you can have the fruit on. And if your fruit can be snatched up out of your spirit that quick, check it. It should be solidly locked in there. Your joy should be undisturbable. Your peace should be undisturbable. Somebody can't just come and, well, I'm joking, but I'm not really joking, because today's Wednesday? It was a week ago. Somebody shouldn't be able to just slap you or hit you and then you lose your peace. Let me tell you, your peace, it's like it'll hold. That stuff is sturdy. It will actually hold. You will actually be, because when you're getting ready to jump, when you stay in the fruit, when you're getting ready to jump out. So don't jump out. When you get ready to go there, don't go there, because you know what you have to turn into to do something what has to happen. Okay, think about it. You operate in the love and peace and joy. The Lord is just talking. You got ideas. You got a song in your. It might be a song from the Winans or a song from the Spinners, but you got a song in your heart. You are happy-go-lucky. Enemy is aiming for your head. You know that. So when you see something walk across and say something to you or do something, or the enemy can come through the supermarket, person checking you out at the supermarket, or a customer in line, whatever. And you have to come out of that. You got to put on ugly to get what they're ugly. So don't put on ugly to get what they're ugly. Don't let this. Your fruit is beautifying you from the inside out. The fruit of God is beautiful. The fruit of the Spirit is beautifying you from the inside out. You got energy. You're looking good. Then after you keep that going, you start doing the physical part, because you start matching. Your body will start matching your spirit. And it's a whole lot of men or women that you might not think are super attractive, with drop dead gorgeous spouses, because of their spirit. They're beautiful in the inside, and that thing just permeates all the time, and they just can't get around it. It just pulls on them. And that's that. You wonder why sometimes you see people together. It's a spirit thing happening before it's a physical thing happening, and you might not realize, you figure, what would you rather be with? A man or woman that's gorgeous and ugly on the inside, or just ugly on the inside? Or would you be with somebody that's passable or not passable? They may not be cute at all, but their heart and their kindness and their love is so compelling that you just fall in love with their spirit. You hear that conversation all the time. Well, God wants you to be beautiful on the inside and the outside. When I say beautiful on the outside, if you start actually functioning in the fruit, and letting that behavior start to penetrate in your mind, God gives you peace. Means you get some order, order. You get some order to your life. Now you might get order in one little small corner and then it expands, but you get some order. Meaning you take stuff that you don't need, you put in the trash can and get rid of it, clear it out. And then as you start to do that, see that order that's in your spirit will transfer to the order in the outside, and then you start to process and you start to move. Physically, you start to get some order. You just start to put things in place. And that beautiful thing that's happening in your spirit starts to come onto the outside. And then you start picking up the habits like God. You start picking up the habits. You start following through. You start completing things. You start finishing things. You start taking care of yourself. Your temperament gets better. You start moving things along because it's a flow. You're operating in the spirit from the spirit out instead of looking like something is happening on the outside, but in the inside, all that stuff is still there, and you're not moving. And then that's why you can't hear. But God speaks all the time. He literally, he speaks all the time. He just, in every single way, every single process. If you are sitting there, if you're sitting in the park and you're hearing the birds, if you're hearing beauty, you're seeing the trees, you're seeing just beauty, God's speaking. He speaks all the time. He speaks audibly. He speaks in your eyes. He speaks in your heart. He speaks when you see acts of compassion. He's not limited to just speaking directly into your ear all the time. He can speak to the degree that you are sensitized to what he's doing. That's to the degree you could hear him. If you recognize his fingerprints, his handiwork, you can start looking at things and go, wow. Like I told you, I used to pass flowers, and I still do when I actually go outside. But when if you're walking, we used to be amongst other people, but if you're walking and you see something really incredible, like something you think is small, but leaves on trees or beautiful flowers, and you go, wow, and you tell the Lord, that is just beautiful. He notices when you notice. He notices when you notice birds and flowers and natural life or beautiful people or acts of kindness. When I say beautiful acts of kindness, that's what I mean by the heart. When you pay attention and you see acts of love, he notices that you notice that. He notices that you notice it because he's watching what you're doing. Just like you watch your children play with toys, God watches how you function in the earth realm. He watches. He knows. He pays attention to you, and to the nth degree. So if that's the case, you only have to be accountable to him. See, it's a private conversation going on in your life. You're having a private conversation. Your whole life you're having that thing that conversation you're having in your head. God is the only one that hears it. So why not be talking to him? Why not go ahead and open it up and let him have a store called your mind? Let him have it. Since you don't have to sit and why did he say, you don't have to process and chew on stuff that's not God. You have the option of indulging in his all of his stuff. That's important. So since you're already over here, just give him the whole store. Give him everything. Let him have your thoughts. Let him have your heart. Let him have the words of your mouth. Let him have everything. And just see and refuse to go back to the other side. Refuse to let go of peace. Refuse to let go of your joy. Refuse to not love somebody. Love them. What does love do? Love apologizes first. Love goes across the street. Love goes across the hallway. It goes across the aisle. Love reaches out, whether it's convenient or not. Good Samaritan, perfect example. Didn't have no religious training, but did the absolute perfect thing that an act of brotherly love would have required. He figured that part out. See, he who loves best is you want to write that down, is a good antidote. Is based on the one doing the best job. So we are going to go just a couple of things. The bigger plan. This is one of the things about the transparency. The reason I say self-examination. I'm trying to give you an example. When people, okay, when somebody, they'll just do parent-child situation. If our sister, brother, or spouse or whatever, but somebody criticizes you and you halfway believe it, then what you will tend to do is protect that thing, become kind of sensitive to it. If somebody's always calling you fat or calling you this or saying you got that, if you ever had acne, I had acne as a teenager, I was highly sensitive to it. And so you do everything, but then at the same time, as soon as somebody looks at you, they're looking at my bumps, or they're looking at this, or they're looking at that. You're sensitive, and then once you're sensitive, then you start being protective, and then you start masking. That it's not by mistake that you get a certain way. People get a certain kind of way because other people make them feel uncomfortable. So they like, okay, well, I won't tell nobody, or I'll just be all to myself, or and you start masking, which means that means you're not transparent. And then you have other people. You've all seen people that are heavy and can dance up a storm because they didn't let it stop them. You've seen people that are maybe not gorgeous but have just incredible self confidence because they didn't let it stop them. But sometimes people try to put you in your place or put you in a box, and you start feeling a certain kind of way. And we do that. People do that to kids all the time. Because they're not functioning like you want them to. You start trying to break them down or control them verbally. You got to answer for doing that to people. I said yesterday, anything that comes out your mouth that dims the light of somebody else is not God. Who is using your tongue? Because he's not a tear down. He is not a tear down God. He is a build up, a love, joy, fruit of the Spirit. He nurtures. He helps things along. He grows things. He grows solutions. He's not a tear down, beat you down God. He doesn't do that. But if something like that's coming out your mouth, check it because it's not God. And why would you let the devil use your tongue? Don't is be right up in the middle of church. It happens sometimes right there in the place where you're going to get help. You get the worst abuse or cuts because you're trying to be open, but you got somebody angry or them other kind of crazy spirits that be up in there. And that's why I talk about washing. This thing that you're doing, just imagine the houses of God, they just, this was real transparent and broke it on down with that first statement. If something coming out of your mouth is dimming or hurting the light in somebody else, that is not God. And how many times you see that going back and forth, and then you expect the Holy Spirit to be moving up in there, and venom is coming out of somebody's mouth, venom is coming out of their heart. You can't do that. You can't tolerate it, but you got to recognize it because you got to pray it down, pray it off, cast it out. You have to be a discerner of fruit, and you got to pay attention and listen for it. So you have to be really keen on this thing. In order for you to be a discerner and a processor and a prayer and a person that addresses that stuff, you have to be filled up with it yourself. If you're going to be talking about fruit, the fruit of the Spirit, you got to be rolling over in it yourself. You got to have mastered the concept of peace, mastered the joy, meaning you have it and it's not being taken away under any circumstances. It may alter a little bit. It might be, you could have joy and still be crying for a certain period of time, but at the bottom of all that tears, the joy of the Lord still, it comes right back up. You still got it. You got the peace. You got the love. You have that in a functioning force, as a force, not just as something that if everybody will leave you alone, it'll stay. Your peace, your fruit should be sustainable in the midst of every situation, not because somebody was nice to you or you met love, joy, and peace, so you respond with love, joy, and peace. There's nothing in that. It's when you respond with love, joy, peace, and all of that, and you're not being addressed. It's not coming at you, but you putting it out there. You are proactive in your fruit, not just, well, if they're nice to me, I'll be nice to them. That ain't nothing. You didn't do nothing. Everybody can do that. It's when you can sustain the fruit and be the love and pleasant presence and the love of God in the situation, and it's not friendly. And it's not liking you. It's not talking nice to you. It's barking at you, and you still can respond. That's what we're talking about. It has to be something that's really in your spirit and really functioning in you really function in it. Then you can hear from God because you have set the table and set the circumstances, and you have moved out of the way, and you have said, nevertheless, Jesus in Gethsemane, he wasn't with the crucifixion. He wasn't. He was like, I don't, no, nope, I don't want to do it. Well, now that I see what it's going to feel like, and he can probably feel the spiritual weight of what was, he could. He could feel the spiritual weight of the hate that was coming at him. He probably was like, no, I don't think so. Is there something? Do we have another plan B? It wasn't a plan B. He had to go, and he struggled with that, and he had to say, not my will. So if he could do it, and he did, and nobody's strapping you down to a beating you and taking you and hanging you and doing all that. Nobody's doing that nowadays. You just have to open your mouth and tell people about the Lord. You don't have to get your hands cut off, your head cut off. You don't have to get a brand on you. You're not doing all that. And as a result, guess what? Our testimony got weaker because we didn't have to come against nothing to make it, but still come against it and make the testimony. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to read the scriptures on hearing the voice of God, but to hear clearly, and to hear clearly, you go, Lord, all the time. Let me you look at yourself. Just do like what you when you talk to yourself. Say, Lord, yourself. Say your name, and you go. My mind must be clear so I can hear from you. Whichever way you put anything, whatever direction you go in, I need to be right up with you, right with what you want to do. I need to be one lockstep with you. That's your conversation with God. I need to be lockstep with what you're doing. I need to hear from you. And then you need to know how to get in there and say, I need to hear from you. And then, and once you do, don't let it go. Once you get that hallway cleared out, don't let nothing else get in between you and God ever, ever, ever. Don't let the enemy sell you out. Don't let him try to pull you into something. Don't let anything get in that pathway between you and the Lord. And you and hearing the voice of God, let nothing, protect it with your life. Let nothing get there, because you're going to always need to hear. You are a spiritual being having an earthly experience with your Father in heaven. That's who you're listening to. You got to hear from him, or else you're not going to get the direction. You're going to be saved, but you're not going to hear. You'll be misled. You got to hear from God. You got to hear. You got to learn how to sit till you do. Sit in the presence till you do. Block out everything else until you do. How to just, because I know how to, where you just have to go, wait a minute, let me, you have to just say, could you give me a minute, and get quiet real quick and ask him. Sometimes he'll answer right away, but he will give you an unction on one way or the other. Even if it's to buy you some more time, God is right there. He will not leave you. And you need to make sure he will never leave you nor forsake you. And he's answerable to he is with you. He is with you. So if he's with you, it would behoove you to know how to listen to him. Okay, so let's get the scriptures, and then we're going to be done. These scriptures are on hearing the voice of God, and in each of you individually should be good at it. You should not be wandering around talking about, I don't know what God is telling me. At first, I would say, do you have the Holy Spirit? Do you have it? Yes. Second question is, have you forgiven everybody? Are you sitting still functioning in your carnal mind? That's the problem right there. Because if you still function in your carnal mind, you will not hear from God. But if you are God conscious and you You have laid your agenda aside to hear from him, and you have asked him, and you're listening for him, and you're keeping that clear. It's impossible to not hear. It's like a running stream of water, and you just take your cup and stick it under there and get it filled up, and you drink it. You stick it back under there. It's constant. He is constantly giving out information, constantly speaking, constantly blessing us, constantly loving. He has not stopped to pull back on none of it. He's constantly loving you. You have to be constantly listening. You have to listen.